And welcome back to the Hot Lap. After an absolutely thrilling Miami Grand Prix, it is a McLaren 1-2 in what ended up being fairly dominant. It did not look that obvious though up until about lap 18-19 because it was Max Verstappen not quite in control. But Max Verstappen, for his fans, doing Max Verstappen tactics. For his detractors, doing Max Verstappen tactics. So some of them were good, some of them were a bit near the mark. But we also need to talk about the absolute disaster that was the Ferrari strategy that played out for all to see. Boy, should they have red, just not on their car, but absolutely all over their faces. At least the management, the strategy guys. I mean, what were they thinking? It was cringe. So before we get into any of those shenanigans, let's have a massive congratulations for Oscar Piastri once again. When we started the Miami, I'm just putting my earphones in. Once we started the Miami Grand Prix, everyone was like, the talking point was, oh, no one's ever won from the front row, and it still remains to the point today. So, Verstappen on pole, got a decent start and pushed Lando Norris off, or if, I guess you're a Lando fan, or hard racing if you are a Verstappen fan. It was very near them. I think it was a lot nearer the mark than the Oscar Piastri incident in Saudi Arabia, but he didn't get a penalty, so there we go. But it was extremely hard racing, but Oscar Piastri wins. This was your top 10. It was Oscar Piastri wins. Second was Lando Norris. Third was George Russell somehow getting another podium again. You know, he just drives and they all fall around him, and he ends up getting third. Well done to him. Fourth, Max Verstappen. A hard fourth race. Unlucky under the safety car. Fifth, Alex Albon. Sixth, Kimi Antonelli. A hard weekend for him, really. Seventh, Charles Leclerc. Eighth, Lewis Hamilton. Both the Ferraris. Embarrassing is all I can say. Ninth, Carlos Sainz. Yeah. Could potentially get a penalty at the time of writing. I don't think he will, but what was that about at the last corner? 10th, Yuki Tsunoda. Did get a penalty. Survived by just over a tenth of a second. So well done to Yuki. Now, if you're looking at the bottom 11, just outside the point was Isaac Hadjar. 12th was Esteban Ocon. 13th, Pierre Gasly. 14th, Nico Hulkenberg. 15th, Fernando Alonso. 16th, Lance Stroll. What a disaster for the Aston Martin teams. I mean, a couple of years ago, they were really good. 17th, Liam Lawson. 18th, Gabriele Bortoletto. 19th, Oliver Behrman. And 20th and last, sadly, Jack Doohan, who went off at the first corner with Liam Lawson. So before we had the race, this was the real race at Miami. Let's be fair. The Lego race between Ferrari, Mercedes. I mean, let's be fair. There were crashes. There was disasters. And there should have been 5-second penalties or even drive-throughs. But let's be fair, what an absolutely fantastic way to get people hyped for the upcoming Grand Prix weekend. On the notably also on the soft Pirelli tyres, which is pretty cool as well. So absolutely stunning. I mean, well done. What? Just 20 big kids living their best lives. Absolutely. But it did turn into chaos, as you can see here. I mean, what on earth is going on? Look, they're just smacking each other. It's just an absolute, these two here. Okay, let's try again. Links are in description below. Look at that, just coming out. Oh, you can hear the crunch. What is George Russell doing? What is George Russell doing? I mean, the guy, you know, he's about to take him around the outside. I think we've got more footage. I think it's from Hamilton's on board. Yeah, we got to play. Listen to. Look. It's just it. It's brilliant. Let's play it from the beginning. Look at that. I mean, George Russell trying to take out the Ferrari. It's absolute chaos here. The Alpine gets in, but no, the Ferrari gets absolutely sandwiched by the Alpine on George Russell. Then George Russell is like, no. I think that's the Williams team. Yeah, absolute chaos at the Miami Grand Prix. Moving on. Okay, in the fight with Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, I want to say that it was Lando Norris that ended up showing Max the finger. Now, Max Verstappen here, once again, he pushes Lando wide, which, yeah, I mean, hard racing just about. The thing is, with Lando, he's got to what Lewis Hamilton kind of did in the end is, I'm not going to give way to you. And as Lando said in the interview afterwards, if you don't, you either give way or crash with Max Verstappen. Even Oscar Piastri was like, yeah, I've got to really be careful of Verstappen. So in terms of the respect they have for Verstappen on the racetrack, I'd almost say there's not much there. They're just scared because they're like, this guy is, he's going to have a crash with us. So when you say that you respect someone on the track, I guess they probably do in terms of his speed. But as I've always said here, Matt, fantastic talent, can't race. Sorry if you disagree. If you disagree, fair enough. But this is Max really, really hard there. And then Lando down there kind of gives him the finger in a minute. The minute he can. Hey, there we go. Lando there. So Verstappen once again using his very hard tactics against Lando. Lando choosing not to crash, which I guess was good for his championship. And then at the bottom, hey, he gives him the finger there. Well done, Lando. Moving on, this is Norris is through, but both McLaren and Red Bull ran wide. He soon gives the place back. It kind of almost reminded me very much of the US Grand Prix. But there we go. And to be fair, Lando, unlike Verstappen in Saudi Arabia, did give the place back. So one thing you can't say about Lando is he's not a clean racer. So this is an interesting stat when talking about McLaren as well. Piastri now has more wins in F1 than his teammate Lando Norris, in spite of being in F1 less. 6 wins to Piastri, 5 wins to Norris. Although I will say that Lando Norris was the faster of the two McLarens. Had that first lap incident where Max, he didn't push him off. But Anthony, if any of you had the Sky, were watching Sky, he didn't push him off. He kind of just wobbled a bit in that second corner. And lost control of the car, made Lando go wide, but he lost control of the car. Don't know whether that would have been subject to investigation, but there we go. And speaking of investigations, it's just come up as an alert on my phone that Red Bull, Red Bull submits protest. Alleged George Russell failed to slow down on the yellow flags. Yeah, okay. Anthony Davidson said, I listened to the radio, I listened to his throttle, he did slow down, so goodness knows what Red Bull were thinking, unless there was another yellow flag zone. Yeah. So, also, Oscar joins Hamilton and Max Verstappen for the most consecutive finishes on 34. Could he beat Verstappen? Yes. Could he beat Hamilton? Absolutely. He could do it. Could do them both this year. And he's also the first McLaren driver to win 3 Grand Prix in a row since 1998. That was Mika Häkkinen in Europe in 1997. Controversially so, because it was David Coulthard that led him by, and Jacques Villeneuve. So yeah, it was 3, but I think with like some kind of massive exclamation mark. And then obviously Häkkinen won in Australia. Coulthard let him through again, and then Brazil. For me, it counts, but yeah, oh dear. But then Häkkinen went on to do great things, didn't he? So this was also, we're still on McLaren at the moment because McLaren are absolutely doing amazing. 246 points so far this year, and if you add up Red Bull and Mercedes, they are also on 246 points. This is the domination that we saw from Red Bull in 2023 levels, isn't it? But they've actually got 2 drivers that can, that can compete. So finally, on to Red Bull. P4 for Max Verstappen, P10 for Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki, silly Billy in the pit lane, and fair play to him for just holding on to that point, to that P10 by just over a tenth and a half. Max Verstappen, really, really hard racing there. I think maybe slightly over the line at times, but it showed how much he wanted to win. And I think it was almost desperation tactics with his lockup when he made that mistake that Oscar Piastri went by. And here's the thing. Oscar Piastri, I think, now potentially has Max's number. Yes, the McLaren is a quicker car, but I think in terms of race car, when you look at Saudi Arabia and you look at today and the way Oscar would manage to do it and lure Max ultimately into a mistake, even though, Max was pushing really, really hard, that made him go through. He has got a call ahead, and I think Max Verstappen, next time he sees a McLaren with the Australian's helmet behind him, he's going to shudder a bit more than he would, obviously, for Lando Norris. Now, I think Norris is still the faster of the 2 McLaren drivers on 1 lap and over the race distance, which we saw today. And he potentially should have had pole. But in terms of racing, I think, wheel to wheel with Max Verstappen, Oscar Piastri is going to be as hard as Max Verstappen is. And I think Max Verstappen is slowly beginning to realise that. And today, best car driver combination. probably was actually Lando and McLaren. But the other best driver combination was Oscar Piastri, and he owed Max Verstappen today. I think after Max got done by Lando Norris as well, that was pretty much it. I think he in his head he thought third, and it wasn't until that very unlucky, timely safety car, timely for George Russell, that he ended up losing what would have been third place. I secretly wanted a safety car. But once again, another podium for George Russell. He is showing really strong here. And I think this is one of his more impressive podiums this year. One of them, in terms of he was having a difficult weekend. It was clear that Kimi Antonelli was a lot happier than him throughout all the weekend. The first weekend, it appeared that Kimi had an advantage, yet it's George Russell that comes out with P3. So yeah, Kimi Antonelli P6. Disappointed really for him, but he'll have his day. He's gonna win a race, possibly this year as well. Now let's get on to this. Let's get on to the Ferrari team disaster. Oh my gosh, Ferrari, what were you thinking? It was an absolute cluster. So okay, good race, a good idea to put Hamilton's on hards. It worked. I think it worked really well. Under the safety car, he got very lucky. That's why he was able to get so close to Charles Leclerc. Now, they had their strategy where he was behind Charles Leclerc far too long. So if they wanted to let him by, he'd use up the best of his tyres by then to try and catch Kimi Antonelli. He stormed. He was so fast, caught them so quickly. Then by the time Charles Leclerc let him by, his tyres were then absolutely cooked. So then he had to let Charles Leclerc by. And ultimately, neither of them got Kimi Antonelli. And then when asked in the interviews, Fred Vasseur was absolutely useless. So, I mean, this is, you want me to sit here the whole race, I'll come back to you. In China, when I get out of the way, when you were on a different strategy, have a tea break while you're at it, come on. This is not good teamwork, that's all I'm going to say. Sainz, then they said Sainz 1.4 seconds behind. You want me to let him pass as well. To be fair, it was the most entertaining Hamilton radio for years. This is just some of it, here we go.
In China, I got out of the way when you're on a different strategy.
Understood. We swapped the cars.
Have a tea break while you're at it. Come on.
Now, ultimately, he obviously let Leclerc by, which is by the by, but there. But the people that want to diminish, having a go at Hamilton, he's past it, and etc. Lewis Hamilton, after 5 races in 2025, 31. He's got more points now than he did in 2024, 19. So for the Hamilton dislikers, I'm just going to throw that stat in there. And we'll be talking about that as well. Now, for the other people that are saying, and I think Carlos Sainz is a great driver. Carlos Sainz should not have lost the Ferrari drive to Lewis Hamilton. I give you the sprint race where he knocked himself out of the points, and I give you this where he desperately lunged towards Hamilton. Now, I know Anthony Davidson did do on the Skypad, if none of you watching, Hamilton did, to be fair, turn in a bit earlier this lap than he did the lap before. But the issue is, for me, Carlos Sainz was coming so far back. He's moving under braking it. No, he's not, Carlos. He's turning into the corner that where you are almost T-boning Lewis Hamilton for doing a desperate lunge that really wasn't on. And this is Carlos Sainz. A torrid weekend in terms of the races. He's got a lot of speed. In terms of the races, it was, I think, his worst weekend for Carlos Sainz. He can do a lot. He can do a lot better. Now, Charles Leclerc, about his frustration, he said, "It's been a tough Sunday. I tried to open the radio the least possible. We extracted the max from the car this weekend. There was nothing more. We weren't fast enough." Kind of humbling. His Lewis Hamilton's interview, which I thought was interesting.
Pace maybe that you'd hope for? Was that the kind of best you could get out of the tyre?
Super bright. No, yeah, ultimately it was a difficult race.
It was, definitely.
There was a lot of grip with the rain.
And to be fair, I think Hamilton, starting on those hards, did quite well, really, to not be as slow as he was.
And so the track was a little bit green.
It was.
I lost a lot of time, obviously.
And when the track's green, it's going to be more abrasive towards the tyres, which makes also sense on the hard tyres, but he's going to have very low grip at the start of the race as well, and all that fuel.
Behind the Haas at the start, and then, things started to come alive. I was getting excited. I was P8, and I got this fresh tyre, and I clearly had a lot more pace in the car ahead, so
yep,
in that moment I was like, come on, let's utilise it, let's catch up the McLarens, and so I was hyped, and just a lot of time was lost.
It was.
In the scenario that we had, and of course in the heat of moments it's frustrating, but
it was.
We will go back to, we'll internally work it out and figure out how we can we can improve.
And one thing, Hamilton, yes, on the radio, unlike some other people, he's not offensive. I think a lot of the time on the radio, he's passionate, but I don't think he's offensive.
I'm sure there's some sensitivities. I'm not feeling sensitive. We're not where we want to be.
No.
Charles and I. So, yeah.
How much work is there for this team to do? Obviously, Williams beat you today. No disrespect to them, but obviously I guess it does show how far back you are at the minute.
Yeah, well, firstly, Williams are doing an amazing job. They've got James there who's doing a great job with his team.
Oh, look at
the whole
that.
team's doing fantastic.
Yes.
And they've got 2 great drivers there.
They do.
And they're really quick, yeah. For us to be battling with them and struggling to beat them just shows that we have a lot of performance to find. We're lacking performance in a car, but I think we know where we are.
I mean, I'll leave it there. I think we know where we are. There is an update coming, I think, for Europe, possibly Imola or Spain. It needs to be good. If it's not good, a lot of people are saying that Ferrari are going to give up on this year's title, which I understand. P5 for Albon, which I think was really, really good. Very, very solid there. Solid times for Albon. Fantastic. I mean, this guy goes from strength to strength. P9 for Carlos. Yeah, well, I've already told you what I feel about Carlos. In terms of VCARB or Racing Bulls, P11 for Hadjar just outside the points, but a solid race. A difficult weekend for Liam Lawson. I don't think... I mean, him and Doohan... I need to watch that again to see who's really to blame for it, but both of them ended up DNFing. A difficult weekend for Lawson, one that he will not want to repeat. 13th in DNF, obviously, for Alpine, P13 for Gasly. Yeah, average. And disappointing, obviously, for Jack Doohan, who qualified Gasly for the first time. I forgot to mention that now, qualifying too. P12 and DNF for Haas. Again, a disappointing weekend for Haas. Most disappointing, obviously, for Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. P15 and P16. Oh, God, it's just not good at all, isn't it? And P12 and P15, fair play for Stake F1, because I think they're the slowest cars. And, yeah, I mean, they... Wait, how can he be P15? Am I looking at the race results or the sprint? What's going on? Okay, I don't get that. But no, never mind. Moving on. This is the championship standings, and Oscar Piastri leads at 131. Lando Norris about 16 points behind, I think, give or take. And I think 16 points behind him is Max Verstappen. George Russell only 6 points behind Verstappen. Then Leclerc on 53, Antonelli on 48, Hamilton on 41. Then you've got Albon in 8th on 30. You have Ocon in 9th on 14th, Stroll in 10th on 14. Then 11th is Tsunoda, 12th Gasly, 13th Sainz, 14th Hülkenberg, 15th Behrman, 16th Hadjar, 17th Alonso still on no points, Lawson on no points, and 18th Doohan nil point, and Bortoleto nil point, 19 and 20. McLaren 188 point lead. So that thing, 188 point lead. Yeah, 188 points. That's a lot, isn't it? Mercedes and Red Bull 141, 105. But that means my stat was completely wrong with McLaren, so I do apologise. What stat was that? Let me see. Let me see my wrong stat, if that's the case. It was 246 points. Yeah. Was that wrong? McLaren's done one in 2025. Unless this Miami Grand Prix Championship. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to completely ignore that. And let's go to the subscribers, because I'm getting really confused. If you are subscribed, if you're not subscribed, please give us a subscribe. That'll be absolutely amazing. If you're already subscribed, as I keep saying, you just watching this is more than enough for us. But until then, stay safe. We will speak to you soon. And as I mentioned, thank you very much for watching.